Hello and welcome back to the Illinois Captain Podcast. I'm your co-host, Danny Castle, joined by my other co-host, Jim Castle.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This month, we're going to be talking about our trip to Clinton Lake in May of 2020. And this was still during the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, and Lord knows how long this will go on. But for our purposes in Illinois, the governor did open up some of the state parks and made them accessible to fishing. You still can't camp there overnight, but you are able to fish from the shore, and then they do have some boats that they allow two people on a boat. So one of the first lakes that they opened was Clinton Lake, and that's down in DeWitt, Illinois, which is in DeWitt County, and it's about a 3-hour drive for us. It's about 2.5 hours south of Chicago. So DeWitt is a dammed up river. It's apparently called the Salt Creek prior to it being dammed up, and it serves as a cooling lake for the Clinton Lake power plant, nuclear power plant. So there are two branches to the lake. There's the West Lake and the East. I'm sorry, the West Fork and the East Fork of the lake, and they draw fluid from the west branch of the lake and run it to the power plant, and then the heated water comes out on the east side, on the East Fork of the lake. And it's a 4,900 acre lake. It's got a maximum depth of 48 feet. So it appears that the warm water arm is on the east side and the cold water arm is on the west side. And it's apparently good in the winter for that reason, because the heated water comes on the east side, and they do close down some of the fishing on the east side of the lake during the winter. But we drove down there, and just to tell you where we fished, so we went into the main part of the state recreation area, so the Clinton Lake State Recreation Area, and there's a little pavilion there called the Muscootin Pavilion. So we actually we tried two different spots, but they were really right next to each other. So there's the Muscootin Pavilion, and then there was a second parking lot in between the Muscootin Pavilion and the beach area. And what we did was we went down to sort of this rocky shoreline that they have down there. What we found on our topography maps was that the channel of the lake, or the channel of the old river, actually comes right up to the shoreline there. So we thought that would be the best fishing access. And it was the three of us. It was Danny, myself, and Kyle Castle were there. So we might hear from Kyle some more in months to come. And so I'm going to let Danny take over and talk about the rigs that we used and also how much success we had with the fishing. But I just wanted to correct one thing that I said last week, and I'm sort of embarrassed about this because I kind of pride myself on geography knowledge. But I mentioned that we live near the Des Plaines River, and I was talking about the watershed of the Lake Michigan and the Des Plaines. And in reality, our draining river closest to our house is something called the Skokie River, which hundreds of years ago would have drained into the Chicago River and then out into Lake Michigan. But the flow of the Chicago River was reversed, so it no longer drains. It drains out west with the Chicago River out towards the Mississippi, eventually to the Mississippi River. But so historically, our house would have been part of the Great Lakes drainage and watershed, but after they reversed the flow, it no longer is. So there's only a few little creeks that actually feed Lake Michigan right near the shore. But the Des Plaines River never fed into Lake Michigan. It always actually flowed finally into the Mississippi River eventually, and down into the Gulf of Mexico. So just wanted to correct that. And sorry about that tangent. And then Danny's going to take over and talk about what tactics we used over at Lake Clinton and what success we had.
So if you've been a frequent listener to the podcast, you would know that the rigs that we use, we have, we've kind of changed it up over the years. We first started with a weight that we put on, and then a bead, and then a wire, and then on the wire you put a 1/0 circle hook. But now we've changed it, and at Walmart you can get these little pre-made packs these pre-made like catfish packs where you have the wire, the beads, and the weight are all together in one pack, so it's all on 1 liter. So we use those at Walmart.
Yeah, I believe they're made by Eagle Claw, and I don't think I've seen them anyplace else. I'm not even sure you can buy them on the internet, but they do sell them at Walmart.
So we use those now. We still put a one-aught circle hook, and I think that's kind of what we learned the most from our trip to Clinton Lake is that I think it's very important that you have a hook that's exposed, whether it's a big hook or a small hook if you can. But what we were having problems with was hooking up on fish on the smaller hooks because the hooks would just bury themselves in the shrimp, and the fish would never catch with the hook. So I think we're switching to 1/0 circle hooks, strictly 1/0 circle hooks because they stick out of the shrimp better than a size 1 circle hook. And I like the Gamakatsu 1/0 circle hooks because those are just, I think that they're just the best shape. They look like a classic circle hook. The other circle hooks that we bought from Eagle Claw and stuff, they just they look kind of like a J hook, like a bended J hook. So I just like the regular circle hooks better. So the bait that we used as always was shrimp, and the fishing that we had there was all right. We went there twice. The first time we had a lot more luck than the second time. We were catching a lot of bluegill, and they were about a foot or so from the shoreline. It's a rocky shoreline, and so they were hiding in the rocks. And it appeared that there was a small drop off, very very close to shore, maybe a few feet from shore, and so they were right there. Having a lot of luck with that. We brought home a few and cooked them up with the one catfish which we caught, and the catfish we caught was not very big. It was probably 3/4 of a pound. It was not, honestly, it was not very much bigger than the bluegill we were catching. The fillet that we used for when we were cooking it up was not very much bigger than the bluegill. So we caught that again on the shrimp. It was a very small bite. I thought it was a bullhead at first because it was a very small bite. Now it did make a run. Bullhead usually don't run; they just spin in circles. And try to, and it gets kind of annoying because they'll bite up your wire a lot, and so your wire gets kind of worn out over time, as we learned on our last trip. But the catfish we caught, again, it was very small. It was on the shrimp, and we had a couple of other bites. One of them was really small, and it was another small catfish. I think we lost it on one of the really smaller hooks because the hook just was not exposed from the shrimp. And then we had one more bite, and that was a really, really big bite. Like I think that may have been a more sizable fish, maybe 5-6 pounds, because it really bent the rod. The other catfish didn't. It just sort of it was enough to make the bell ring, but no more. And this fish really took the bait. So we had a lot of success, and that was on the point, as my dad just talked about earlier, the point off the Mascoutin Park area, and it was. Sorry.
Yeah, the Mascoutin Park area, one of the nice things about it was, as we were saying before, it has a steep drop-off from the shore. So when you park there, you realize there's kind of a steep drop-off to get down to the rocky shoreline. And then it keeps going fairly straight down. The channel of the river runs right next to the shore there, which is why we chose it. As Danny was saying, there was one really big bite that of course came off.
My dad didn't see it though; it was me.
But the people, we had a couple people that were fishing down the shoreline from us, maybe 100 yards or so, that did catch a blue catfish, and it appeared to be about a 15-pounder. And they were using cut shad, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who would say, look, you really need to cut shad and use it as bait. And we've talked about that on previous podcasts, that just for ease of use and for timing reasons, we sort of prefer to use the shrimp. It's just so much easier to obtain than shad, particularly without having a boat and a casting net. That was our preference. But there are blue catfish, which again is kind of a rare treat in Illinois. Most of the blue catfish we're aware of would be in the far southern part of the state, more native to the Mississippi River area, and some of the branches of that. So some of the inland lakes, it's really kind of a treat to see the blue catfish. But yeah, I think the bottom line is we did catch one channel catfish, and it was not the biggest thing in the world. It was clearly still fairly young. It even had the spots on it, which I think as any catfisherman knows, when you see those spots, you realize, okay, well, this is a young juvenile catfish. But it was big enough that it was clearly a channel catfish, and we were able to bring it home, and we did try cooking it up, and
Tasted good.
yeah, I would say that Danny and I made a decision. We are going to try to cook up some of these catfish. Danny has become really quite a cook here at home. Actually, during the lockdown, he's taking up cooking as a hobby, and it's delicious food. And
It's less of a hobby than it is that it's just easier to do because I'm trying to eat healthier in the way that my dad likes to bring home the shrimp gumbo stuff. Just easier to cook up my own stuff so that we stay on a bit of a healthier diet, right?
yeah,
Dad?
it's become clear that my cooking is not good enough for Danny, and that it's also very unhealthy. So he's taken up cooking, and he's become really good at making fish tacos. So we brought back a whole mess of bluegill and that one catfish, and made some fish tacos, which I actually think was really delicious. So Danny, why don't you talk about how you cook them up?
So it's actually very simple. What you do is you just you put a pan on medium over the stove, and you put on some olive oil so that it fills up the bottom of the pan, and then with the fish, all you do is just season it with salt and pepper, enough until it looks like it's evenly seasoned, and then you just put it on the stove and stir it around until it looks cooked. I think it took me 5 or 6 minutes for it to be fully cooked. You want to make sure it's fully cooked because there's a lot of diseases that go around with this raw meat stuff, and especially at places like Clinton Lake, I'm not too sure how safe that water is. So the fact that the fish have been swimming around in that, you just want to make sure you kill all those diseases. So make sure that it's cooked long enough, but also don't burn it. So. And then, for the fish tacos, what we did was we just put them with beans, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, bell peppers, onions, and you can put some salsa on top there too, and it tastes pretty good.
Yeah, it was delicious and nutritious, I would say. And the other advantage too is if the fish kind of falls apart in the frying pan, that's no problem because you just use a spoon to put them into your taco. And absolutely delicious. And I'd forgotten how good catfish can taste. So we decided since this was a small catfish, we'd cook it up because the sense I get is that if you eat the ones that are 3 pounds or lighter, they actually taste really good. Whereas if you eat anything heavier than that, you're dealing with a little bit gamier of a taste. I guess is one nice way to put it. So that was delicious. And the other thing, I would add, another change that we made that we would highly recommend to people, particularly if you like to catch panfish and eat them. We bought a electric fillet knife, Rapala fillet knife. So I have kind of a mini cleaning station outside the house. My wife doesn't let me bring any of this in the house. So we have a table out there with an outlet so I can use my electric fillet knife. And I have a hose and a scaler. So, bring the fish home and we scale the bluegills and the other panfish and then use that electric fillet knife. And the electric fillet knife has cut down the time it takes for me to fillet a panfish to just a minimal amount of time, much, much easier than using your own knife. So if anyone out there likes to eat their own panfish, because we did bring home probably between the 2 days, we brought home a good, 15 or so nice sized bluegill to make the fish tacos with the one catfish. The other thing I'll mention is we haven't been mentioning this too much in the previous episodes, but don't forget to check out our website, IllinoisCatfishingPodcast.com. We looked at our numbers recently, and we have a lot of people listening to the podcast, but nobody's really checking out the website. And the website has all our pictures and our maps of where we were, and I think it's a really nice add-on to the podcast. Plus, if anyone wants one, we have these really nice mugs. Where you just tell us, where you live and what mailing address. We'll send it to you. Actually, what we found is that the postage is the hardest part. It's not that easy to ship a solitary mug if you're not, if you don't have a lot of them going out on a regular basis. To just do once in a while, it's a little bit more expensive than we thought. So we'll probably, if you email us, we'll probably just send you an email back with the. I would think the mug itself would be $10, and the shipping might be about $5 to $10. Just because of how difficult it is to send one solitary mug.
I do want to add, we how the name of our podcast is the Illinois Catfishing Podcast, but I know that we have a lot of listeners outside of Illinois, and in fact, on our three most downloaded locations, 2 of them are outside of the state of Illinois, and so I just wanted to add that. The tactics that we're using are most likely very applicable to anywhere in the Midwest. I don't know how it looks on the West Coast or the East Coast, especially down south, but I do know that a lot of these tactics are used all around the Midwest, especially in our immediate area, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri. We've seen a lot of people. Ohio, yeah. We've seen a lot of people use these tactics around this area, and a lot of the rivers that connect us to the other states, a lot of those we're using those tactics. Like if we take a trip down to the Ohio River, that's applicable really to anywhere, like Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, really anywhere you are.
Although I would say if you're trying to fish on a fast-flowing, powerful river, I would recommend upscaling the size of the weight that you use, and also the egg weights don't work quite as well as something with a flat bottom, because if it's got a flat bottom, then it won't get pushed around in the current as much. It should stay where you put it. Whereas the rolling weights, we find they just get carried right down the river.
We learned that the hard way.
So several times we've learned that the hard way. Yeah. So I would, if you're in a river with a current, definitely get heavier weights and ones with a flat bottom.
And that reminds me, we did for Clinton Lake, we did go to the spillway, the dam spillway, and I just want to add that was not. For us, that we didn't have very much success there. We didn't have any bites, and again, we did not come with the proper river equipment, so our weights were just rolling across the bottom. We were having not a great time, but there were people catching a lot of big striped bass and some catfish as well on the spillway. But there's just a lot of people there. It's very crowded. It's a very uncomfortable place to fish, but. I just wanted to add that we did try the spillway.
Yeah, I would second what Danny just said. Spillways are quite good for catching catfish, but I would not recommend this spillway if you're going for catfish, because it's really just not a very pleasant place at all to try to fish. It's on a steep incline, and there were many fishermen there going for striped bass. So it was close quarters. I felt like everyone was kind of casting over each other's lines. And we had no success at all trying to catch a catfish in there. And I think all the locals knew that they were really going for striped bass. It was a different kind of fishing. So I would agree with Danny. If you're gonna go to that location, I don't know about the other spots. I know there was one other kind of public access on the West Fork, but there may well be good fishing there. But I would recommend just going to the location that we went to, which is in the Mascoutin Pavilion, and the parking lot just southwest of that, and using that stretch of graveled beach, which ran on for about a quarter mile, I thought it was excellent access. If you have a fishing cart full of your stuff, you can bring it there, and just easily up and down, and it's flat and level and just very comfortable.
There are a lot of snakes there, though.
Oh yeah, excellent point. We had a mating. We had a couple mating snakes about 3 feet long that just paid us no mind whatsoever. They were doing their thing, probably at times within 3-4 feet of where we were sitting or standing.
There were a lot of them though. Like there was that mating pair, but then there was also that snake that Kyle and I saw just walking down the pathway, and then there were some baby snakes around. At one point there may have been 3 or 4 snakes within a 20 feet radius of each other. It was kind of crazy. I haven't seen. Usually those snakes are very territorial, but there were a lot of snakes there. So just be careful if you go to that spot with the snakes.
Yeah, I would say that too. Careful where you stand. They were all over the rocks. So if you are trying to cast off of a rock, just be careful before you put your foot down where you're walking. That's an excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode. This was Clinton Lake, and for some of these locations, we are gonna take a second look at some of them in the future. I'm hoping because I think where we live, and probably in the whole state of Illinois, our sense has always been that the best catfishing is really from about July 4th to about October 1st. So, some of these spots, it's kind of unfair for us to go there in May and then, not have a terribly good day and because it's cold and the water temperature is still quite cold and
they're spawning and stuff.
Right, and there might be a bit of a spawn on at that point. So, we may go back to some of these spots. I know that there was one piece of feedback we got after our previous episode at Lake Mattoon where I think one of the locals didn't feel like we'd given it a fair shot. So, we reserve the right to go back during warmer months with maybe some local knowledge and try some of these spots again.
Yeah, I do want to add that that fishing, we have not had very much success before June 15th, and we've been getting very frustrated with our fishing lately. We're used to going out and catching catfish after catfish after catfish, at least once every half hour, we were thinking back to our Lake Springfield trip where we were frustrated when we caught one in an hour, and now we're lucky to catch one in 5 hours, and it's just it's different fishing. We didn't have a podcast last year, so we waited until June 15th, 16th to go out fishing again, and so and that's when we were having a lot of success with catfish. But it's early in the year, and if you're having the same problems, just be patient. They will come out. The spawn will end, and they'll be very, very hungry. They'll be out everywhere, and it's just it's unfortunate that we live in a place where it's very misleading, the weather, where it's 80 degrees, and you'd think that you were living in Florida or something here in May, but just think 2 weeks ago. It was in the 40s, the 30s and 40s, and so the water temperature is still very cold. The fish are out spawning right now. Things are very slow in the spring and then pick up in the summer.
All right. Well, thanks very much for listening, and we will be back next month with another show. And don't forget, again, the website, IllinoisCatfishingPodcast.com, and the email, IllinoisCatfishingPodcast@gmail.com. All right. Until next time, have a good one.